graced with the presence of our first place DLC Seattle winner, Wonderland.
That's me. Yeah. Good to be here. Finally get to do a video with you.
Thank you. It's long overdue.
We've been trying since Georgia, I think. So 6 DLCs.
I didn't go to a few, so you have some excuses there.
I guess.
Okay, so you want to get into the deck profile?
Sure. I mean, it's a pretty basic green steel list. It's just Zan's list from Vegas, and then a few cards changed.
Well, we can always talk about what cards you changed and if they made a difference and so and whatnot.
Well, the main differences between this list and Zan's are his original Vegas list is the Dock, and then the baboons.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, we cut, and we were playing an extra muse. I think we cut an Anna, a Pete, and a Hypnotize.
An Anna, a Pete, and a Hypnotize.
Hypnotize. There's one more.
Yeah.
What else did we cut?
So you're still playing the basic though for Diablo. You gotta see the hand.
Oh yeah, like it has the basic game plan of just trying to get Diablo online as soon as possible and then draw all the cards. All the green steel lists are doing this. It doesn't matter if you're being aggressive or controlling or mid range. They're all playing Diablo. It's one of the best color combinations to be able to take advantage of having to play so many actions. And since you're playing all these actions, it leans towards Ursula, Deceiver of All, being able to double sing these things. Since you're playing so many songs and actions, the Muses is also quite good in the deck. And so you kind of have this like solid 30, 40 cards that most lists are all going to play. And there's a little bit of leeway. Some going heavier with like Tinkerbells and Beasts, and others trying to go low to the ground with like Flynn Riders and Merfolk.
So now,
Which is,
go ahead. Sorry.
yeah.
Did you always find that you were able to do the Diablo shift line?
A lot of the time. I did not have it in the finals at all.
Oh wow.
There was a few games that it was just the turn 2 shift with a morph as well, and then a shift beast the next turn, just like draw all the cards. Or the turn 2 shift with a code to just be like, brawl this. Like, you can't answer this, you can't sing removal on it, you can't do anything. And Baboom helps with that line. It's another inkable card that you can play on turn 2 to help protect your Diablo against opposing Diablo singing removal or opposing Cinderella Ballroom singing removal as well.
Did you find that like your opponent really could not like match the Diablo when you were able to do the shift?
Sadly, my Diablos normally were banished after a few turns.
Really?
But yeah, a lot of times that's what happens. You just have to kind of take the few cards you got and continue pushing the tempo and hope they don't have an answer for your second Diablo or your Beast. Or then hopefully not have an answer to your Ursula, Deceiver Wall, so that you can play Prince John and double sing Sudden Chill to draw 2 cards and discard 2. The deck is just all forms of card advantage, and you're just trying to jam it all down your opponent's throat and hope one of them sticks, and then ride that card advantage engine to victory.
Gotcha. And then now we also play 4 morph. Very. Now, what are you always trying to shift beast, or sometimes you would do Tinkerbell? Like, when do you decide which one to do over the other?
Well, the lovely thing about Morph is it also, I shifted Diablo on it countless times.
Oh,
And
okay.
almost preferred that over the Beast sometimes, because you could still quest because of the evasion, and then you can just play the Beast if you need to later, and you still can. I found
That's
that
interesting.
if you can get a Tinkerbell on it, in some matchups it's insane. I think that happened once or twice in the top 8 where I top decked the Tinkerbell, shifted it on the morph, and like took out 3 characters.
Oh wow, that's like killer for like a hyper aggro deck.
Oh yeah, it was against. I think both times were against Amber Steel.
Okay, okay. Now there's different versions of Amber Steel too. Amber Steel Hyper Aggro or regular Steel Song.
That happened once against the normal Steel Song in the finals,
Hmm.
and then against a Steel Fossil in the top 64. I also had like a
Ooh.
really good Tinkerbell top deck. And then at least once or twice in day 1, I had just like a Tinkerbell take over a game.
Okay, and then now we have Ursula Deceiver. So now, did you find that both Diablo and Ursula allow you to see the hand? But at least Ursula allows you to take a song. Were you able to not use one or over the other in any of your matches, or you're always trying to?
Um, so that's the nice thing about. So we're always trying to aggressively mulligan for Diablo.
Okay.
So unless we know what they're on, then there's some small adjustments that can be made. Depending on the matchup, I'll normally keep 1 Ursula, 2, to be able to hit cards in the mirror and or against Amber Steel. And then I'm more apt to maybe hold a beast against Ruby Amethyst, but not as much there. I'm still just trying to like go very aggressive. Really, it's like I might keep a cove more often if I know they're playing Ruby, just to keep my Diablo alive past Brawl. So if I'm like very aggressively mulliganing into the Diablos, I'll normally always have turn 1 Diablo if I'm lucky.
Okay.
And that will let me see their hand and know whether or not I need to play the Ursula 2 or ink it or save it for a few turns if it's like a be prepared matchup and I like really need to hit that later. I might save it for a few turns.
Now, do you know like the percentage that you should hit a Diablo if you don't see it in your opening hand?
Uh, Not off the top of my head. I know when I was playing a whole new world, I had like done some percentages in set 1 to see the chances of getting or drawing into a whole new world,
Hmm.
and it was enough there that I don't know the exact percentages with the Diablo, but it happens quite a bit. And when you have Morph in there, that adds an extra card that you can keep over the baby Diablo. So
Okay.
normally it's like you only keep a Diablo unless you have both, and then you can keep an action to discard. And then if you get to keep Morph, you can keep Morph in the big Diablo, although you always still keep a small one if you have it. And then you can like get the best open you can have, which is Diablo into Shift with a Morph, and then Shift the Beast. And it's like incredibly difficult for decks to answer all of these threats.
Okay. And now we made it to Doc, Bold Knight, only a one of.
Yeah,
Did this Doc put in work?
it did do some work. In the finals or the semis, one of the two, I ended up just playing it as a 1-3 body. I know I played it once, so I had 4 characters, so my Strength the Raging Fire could take out a character.
Hmm.
And then after the character was taken, banished, I used the Muses in play to then bounce the dog back to my hand. And that was mostly so if my opponent top decked their on out on Be Prepared, I still had cards in hand to then deploy and show more of a threat. I think at the time it was like if they be prepped, I dropped like 2 characters and ended with the dock as well to refill to prevent the craziness of them drawing be prep. You know, it's good for restarting a board. And in the mirror match, if they're making you discard your hand, that's an easy way to then redevelop and catch back up. And you don't really want a bunch of them. the deck has a lot of card draw engines. So I would find myself looking at my hand and be like, I have Prince John, I have an Ursula at play, I have a Sudden Chill, I'm going to like pull a trick card next turn and draw so many cards. I'm not going to be playing this deck for like 4 or 5 turns. But
Okay.
I have 2 open ink this turn. I'm just going to play this one and just not discard my hand.
Got it.
So it's nice that it can still fill these roles, but then like is good in other spots, and that's why I kind of split with the Anna. The next card we're going to talk about is like we only really
Diplomatic
play one.
Queen.
Yeah, and you can also buy her back with uses if you really need to use her ability. But I really didn't. There wasn't too many times that I was wishing the Anna was in the Doc, or that I was wishing Doc wasn't in the Anna. I was pretty happy with having this one.
Okay.
And she's in here as another discard outlet for Prince John, and as another way to deal with big threats, such as Tomato
And
or
did,
77.
and did you ever find yourself just playing it for 3 and never for the 5?
I don't think so.
You always try to play it at cost 5?
Yeah. I mean, she has the ability to just do that,
Yeah.
but the deck itself is very heavy in 3s.
I see
I
that.
really found myself needing a 3 on her that she would fill, and I didn't really ever get into a position where in the late game I just needed an extra body and didn't have the extra.
Okay. And then we have the Diablo. Obviously, we've talked about him enough. He's very needed. Pretty much almost like the entire deck depends on him. Would you say that?
In a way, um, your best draws involved, that's for sure.
Yeah. Is there like a way where you don't see a Diablo at all and you can still win? Do you think?
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, I did that in the finals.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get the shifted Diablo, I should say. I think I had the 1-drop Diablo in the first 2 games, but I never saw the 3-drop Diablo.
Oh, okay. I
And
thought
think in
you
game
didn't do
3, I
the
had
shift.
the 3-drop, but didn't get a shift.
Okay, okay. So now, did you find yourself needing more cards to draw, or were you always like then depending on the beast, or?
Well, so you have Prince John, Diablo, and Beast as your card advantage engines. You, to an extent as well, you have Deceiver Wall, double singing Storm to draw 2 cards and take care of 2 characters.
That's true.
Using the Sudden Chill to then turn the Prince John.
And then we have the Prince John, greediest of all. Like you said, your draw engine. And now you really never quest with him. Is that accurate?
You try not to.
Mm-hmm.
You really try not to. But he does quest for 2, so lots of times you're able to just burst out a couple quests with him to finish the game.
Okay.
I ended up having to play like 3 of them against red and blue and just turn them sideways for a couple of turns and hope it was good enough to the top 64. And my opponent just didn't draw an answer. So it can do some stuff.
But you would say more that you're questing with him towards the later game, after you gain control over the board.
Basically, I have to be in a really bad situation if I'm exerting him into an answer immediately by the challenge.
Were you worried about brawl at all with any of your matches, or you're trying to wait for that at first?
I mean, that's one of the reasons Prince John is good is the wards they can't brawl.
That's true.
But the brawl answers my Diablo and answers my Ursula. And that's the reason why we're going as a 2-1, because it blanks brawls.
Very true. And then we have the Ursula, Deceiver of All, which allows you to. These are also, you're playing 4 of them, a very stocked amount too.
Yeah, she's incredibly powerful. One of the reasons to be playing this deck. It's one of the most powerful 3-drops in the game, and we're playing the most powerful in Diablo as well. So there's an overwhelm, like an overboard of very powerful cards that each kind of have to be answered.
Yeah, I agree. I always want to try to get rid of this Ursula. And then we have Pete.
This is a great way to answer an Ursula, actually. They play an Ursula on the bird, then you can play a Pete, so they can't double sing, and then you can use the sing, or use the Pete to sing, like a Strength of Raging Fire onto the Ursula, and then maybe play your own Ursula, and then they have to answer back, and they don't have players to double sing. It's also played in a similar role against Amber Steel. So if they hold the world, you get to play that, and they can't sing much. Or if you think they're going to try to go for a hold the world, you can play it preemptively.
Okay. The muses, and you're playing 3 of them, so you bump this one up.
Yeah. It's good in the mirror, and it's very good against Amber Steel. And I had a few matches against Amber Steel where the muses basically just won the game. It just like slowed my opponent down. Everything I did slowed them down and answered their cards. I think I had the muses in play with an Ursula Deceiver of All, and I was singing removal to take out 2 characters and then bounce 2 characters to their hand. And it's just like I answered 4 characters with 3 equally the same. So it's like exerting 1 character and I answer 4 characters.
That's crazy, if you think about it. Now, you mentioned Amber Steel a lot, and we know that you were kind of known for Amber Steel. What made you change decks?
Ruby Sapphire did.
Ruby Sapphire made you change?
Yeah, I do not like to lose to that deck. I mean, I don't like to lose in general. Most people don't like to lose. And I found that while I could beat any deck in the room with Amber Steel, it was just almost impossible to beat Ruby Sapphire. The amount of stuff needed to be done to try to even get to 40% win rate would like make all the other matchups really bad. And then like you're not even good against Ruby Sapphire. And so I ended up switching to this because it had at least a 40-45% Ruby Sapphire matchup. I still feel it's very unfavored, but it's actually winnable with this. And then you still also keep all of your good matchups everywhere else. Like, there really isn't a matchup that's worse than 40%, and there's not very many other decks that can say that.
Okay. And now, did you find that you had enough reps with Emerald Steel before going into the DLC, or?
I've played a lot of Emerald Steel over the years. A year. I played Ember Steel, Aggro, first Riders, and Set 3 in Georgia.
Okay.
And then I played Bucky in Chicago. And then I tested Bucky and played against a lot of Bucky for the next few events. And I just, in general, played a lot of steel decks. I played Green Steel Dock in Vegas, which is different, but also very much the same. It has almost identical mulligan patterns, just trying to get Diablo.
Okay. And now, did you find that the mirror match was like your hardest match? Not really. Okay.
I kind of got lucky. I drew better than my opponent.
That helps.
Yeah. One of the changes from this list, stock list, is the baboons.
We're gonna get to that soon too, right?
Yeah. So I guess we'll wait and talk about that when we get to the
Okay.
Talk about the beasts first.
So we have 4 beasts, and usually you're not questing with the beasts, right? You're kind of more so just drawing it, using him for the draw.
It's just like Prince John. We don't really want to exert it. We don't want to allow it to be challenged. Although once it takes damage, the beast ends up turning sideways a lot more. It's good at taking out locations. It can take out castles with a hit. So if they don't answer it and they just try to damage it to prevent the card draw, it will then answer a lot of their best threats as well. against Ruby. Amethyst.
Is there ever a time where you're damaging your own beast to knock out a castle or a library?
I think once or twice over the whole weekend, I challenged something with Beast. So then the Beast itself was representing lethal for a castle or a library they had. Normally, when I'm doing that, either my back is against the wall, or I have a gigantic hand because I've already drawn so many cards of the Beast, and now it's time the Beast to do something.
Okay. So you wouldn't like let the storm rage on your beast just to give it that extra attack?
Um, if I really, really, really had to, I would do it. I
Okay.
wouldn't be happy about it.
It's like not the same with like Amber Steel where some people want to damage their own characters.
Yeah, it's not as good as storming my character to draw a proposal, that's for sure.
Okay. And then we have only 2 Tinkerbell Giant Fairy. Why only 2?
Uh, Ruby Sapphire, Ruby Amethyst. It's just not great there. It's pretty darn good in the mirror. It's very good against the aggro decks, and it's okay against Amber Steel. Um, if you get to shift it onto a morph, it's insane. If you play 4 Tinkerbells, they're gonna be even more scared of your morphs. If you only have 2, the morph might live more often. It's not like a great reasoning, but it's there. And you just kind of don't always need it. Like I almost always found myself having to ink them if she was in my starting hand, she normally got inked.
Okay.
And so if you play more, you'll just have to ink her more. So instead, I just kind of mulligan her and hope I don't draw her early.
Did you find that a lot of people were kind of playing around with the fact that chances are you had 4 Tinkerbells?
People kind of respected Morph and took it out as much as they could. But I got to shift quite a few beasts.
Okay. And then now we make it to Baboon. And you played 2 of them.
And that was like one of the things that I saw when Vanable showed me the list he was going to play. I was pretty happy with it. I think it's possible that Zan was also on Baboom and Doc. But I think he was also on a Cricky. And one other difference, I can't remember exactly what it was. But the Baboon just overperformed all weekend. Like
Really?
even against Ruby Sapphire, it was okay. Occasionally it was either ink or it would like take out a Tipo that was like kind of threatening. The camera froze. I wonder how long that was frozen there.
So I was like in the zone of listening.
Right. And like it takes out Diablos, Cinderellas. You can combo it with a Storm to take out a bigger threat, and you're drawing so many cards that you can kind of afford to 2-for-1 yourself occasionally if it needs to be done.
Okay. And then we have 3 Hypnotize.
The card's pretty good, and also like, drawing 2 cards and making them discard a card is like not bad at all. But it's not good really against the aggressive decks or Amber Steel. Sometimes it's okay in the mirror. Often it's just a little slow.
So the thing is, you can't also use your actions with Ursula. So
Yeah.
it's
I
literally
mean, if this
just a
was
1.
Whew, it would be nice. But yeah. And we had to make a cut somewhere for the cards. And while Pete's very good and Hypnotize is very good with Prince John, and we need all the discard cards, ended up getting cut.
Okay. And then we have 4 Sudden Chill. This is definitely a usual card in Green Steel.
Yeah, if you're playing Prince John, you're playing Sudden Chill. If you're not playing Prince John, you're not playing Sudden Chill.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah, even with the Ursula Deceiver of All doubling it, it's still kind of not worth it. that if you don't have a Prince John
Okay.
to be in your main deck, it's normally better to play a different song that draws a card. So if you double sing it, you draw two. And that doesn't really come up much because we need Prince Johns, right? So we're just automatically playing four of. And double singing with Ursula and drawing, having them, like, them discarding two, you drawing two is very powerful. And it normally leads to green steel winning the game.
Okay. Now, do you find that if you're playing one less Prince John, you would play one less Sudden Chill? Like that the Prince Johns and the Sudden Chill like numbers go hand in hand, or?
No. I think on average, if I'm playing any number of Prince Johns, I'm probably still maxed on Sudden Chill.
Okay.
And that mostly has to do with Prince John being uninkable.
Okay.
If Prince John was inkable, I don't think you'd ever not play four if you were playing this card. But because he's uninkable, occasionally I understand why some people play three.
Mhm.
But he is very much a cog in the easy games against Ruby Amethyst.
Okay.
He's a very easy way to win those games, just based on how many. Like he equalizes the amount of cards they draw.
I agree. Yeah. It's definitely like you want to have a bigger hand than your opponent, more resources, more things to work
Oh, yeah.
with. And then we have 4 Let the Storm Rage On, a very
Yeah.
usual card in any steel deck, and 4 Strength of the Raging
Yeah.
Fire.
Both of which just obvious, insanely powerful staples, and you can double sing them with Deceiver. They're just gonna there has to be quite the card printed to make you not play these cards.
And then we have 3 We Don't Talk About Bruno.
This was the other card we cut one of.
Okay.
It was originally 4 of these, and we cut one. I was very happy and fine with cutting this card down one. It is quite powerful, but I always flood on them and drop too many of them. So playing 3 is nice. You'll eventually be upset when you had to discard 1 to a Diablo, ink 1 early, and you just can't draw the last one you needed to answer the
Yeah.
something of the sort.
And when you play We Don't Talk About Bruno, it's usually always when there's either no cards in the opponent's hands or like 2 cards, something like that.
If I'm desperate, I don't like playing it if I don't have a Prince John in play. I want
Okay.
max value. If I don't have a Prince John or they have no cards, like if there's no cards in their hand, sure, I'm going to be playing it because it's going to just be removal.
Yeah.
Sometimes, in some situations, especially if I suspect my opponent of being up to no good, trying to sing a whole new world or something like that, I'll play a tempo-based, We Don't Talk About Bruno, just to commit more to the board and slow them down. So if they do have something like that, it doesn't do anything.
Okay.
Or they can't double card because I took away a singer.
Gotcha. I like that. And then we have 2 Hidden Coves.
Hidden Cove is very powerful, and it's just a nod to the cards that people are playing for the mirror. Like, yeah, Arpa Boom is insane in the mirror, taking out Diablos, but not if they're on the play and they have Hidden Cove. Then we have to play a Smee, and we don't even play Smee. So, like, we don't really have a good answer to that. We have to play a Morph, and then, like, shift a Tinkerbell on it a few turns later to take out the Cove. Cove is very troublesome in the mirror. It's good against the Ruby decks. It's good against the Amber decks. Its biggest downfall, and its real only downfall, is that it's not good in multiples.
It's
if
not
you
good
gain
in
the
what? I'm
lore-
sorry.
In multiples.
Multi-
You don't want more than that.
Gotcha.
If you gain lore passively, it'd be a 4 instant 4. Although like 6 toughness would just strictly be better than all of the 4 tough or the 4 willpower ones. But if it somehow, like if it said if there was a character here, gain a lore, it would be, I could see playing more.
And
But
now,
until that happens, it'll be hard to play more too.
and now, so because of the changes that you made to your deck, did you find your deck overall stronger or weaker, do you think, than
I think
Zan's?
the adding of the balloons and the dock and the extra muses are basically metagame choices.
Oh, I will yell at you for being slow.
We wanted to play cards that were good against the mirror and other aggressive decks that are trying to beat up on Ruby Sapphire without hurting our Ruby Sapphire matchup too much. So having Balloon and Muses be the extra cards we play there, like those are inkable at least.
Okay,
So in those matchups that we don't want them, we can just ink them and it's fine.
very true.
And like Doc is not bad against Ruby Sapphire. It's another card that we just commit our threats, and if they answer it, it allows us to recommit to board and hopefully stay in the game.
Okay. And now, is there any changes you would make to your deck?
Well, I mean, going into set 6, there's going to be a few cards at least, but not too many.
Mm-hmm.
The list is very tight already, but like the Anna and the Doc are definitely flex slots.
Okay.
And this is the type of deck that is pretty reactionary in how it's built and what it's trying to use.
Okay.
And so it really just depends on what meta ends up developing with Ezra and C.
And you're also kind of like depending on what you're playing, you're changing your mulligans. Depending on if you're going first, you're changing your mulligans because it's reaction based.
No, I'll always just very aggressively mulligan for the Diablo line. The only times I will really go off of that is if I know what they're on. Then sometimes I'll be like, well, I'm keeping this Baboon. Because I know
Gotcha.
they're on Amber Steel and I need to answer a Cinderella on turn 2. And later
Okay.
draw. Because if they're on the play, and they play a turn on Cinderella, I cannot play my turn on Diablo. Normally. I mean, sometimes I can, because then if they use their removal on that, they don't have the answer to my next turn's play. So you kind of like force them to answer a character every turn. So if you
Okay.
have turn 1 baby Diablo, they have to answer it before you like can shift and answer their character. Then the next turn you play a morph, they have to answer that before you shift on a beast they can't answer, or God forbid, Tinkerbell. And then on turn 3 you play Deceiver Ball and they're gonna have to answer it, and if they don't, you're double singing to remove their characters. And then the turn after that, you then get to deploy a Muses, which would have wards so they don't get to answer it. Or on turn 3 you can play Prince John as well for a warded threat, or a Diablo and be like, you have to answer this too. Like, and eventually, hopefully, they run out of removal.
Answers.
The problem is Amber Steel can go with Cinderella and then an Ursula and then Ariel and then sing removal and answers and then just reset hands. And if they're able to do that and then play Pete, the game's probably over. You can try. I've come back from those games. Ursula is a very powerful comeback mechanic card. And if they just don't answer everything, you have a chance to come back. And Hidden Cove as well. Like, if they quest out, the Cove allows you to get profitable challenges in. It's going to make them have to use more resources, take your characters down, and it could allow some exerts to happen that are profitable. You just have to play around Rapunzel's.
Okay. And somebody asked, how do you feel about the state of discard, and how would you compare it with Bucky pre-nerf?
It's interesting. Personally, I've never really been like I never really hated discard. I think the fact that you can just top deck your way out of it kind of keeps it in check to an extent. And it's almost like needed to fight the insane amount of card advantage that some of the other decks have. Like, if they're Flavershaming or Rabbiting and drawing like 2 to 3 cards a turn, like, how am I going to fight that? I'm going to have to make them discard cards. If they're going to be playing 2 cards and inking and going down to 2 cards, I need to hit those out of their hand so they can't play more cantrips and then draw a bunch of cards. But I can understand how some people do not like to play against discard because they feel like they don't get to play the game. But in my mind, it's the same as removal. It's the same as challenging a character. There's so many ways to answer a card of your opponent's. This one just happens to do it before you play it. And realistically, that should be good. You should be happy about that. I would be more upset if I took my whole turn to play a card and they answered it. And they just did that every turn, which is kind of what the Ruby decks do. Like, so personally, I don't like playing against that. Just because I feel like they always like hit it in the right order, right? They're like, I'll draw 3 cards. Well, now I obviously have the removal for your character. So that can be a frustrating position. But discard doesn't stop the top of your deck. I could have a Bucky and a bunch of characters in play, and I got rid of your whole hand, and you top deck and be prepared, and my whole board is gone, and you just like undid all of everything I did basically.
Yeah, that's the worst. So now my next... Go ahead, sorry.
Oh yeah.
My other question was going to be, what advice do you have for any newcomers just coming into the game?
Mulliganing and knowing what to ink are some of the most skill-intensive and challenging things you can do in this game. And lots of times will basically decide if you win or lose the game on the spot, especially in higher level play. Because your opponent won't be making those same mistakes. And they'll be trying to punish you for any falters or mistakes you make.
Do you think mulliganing and knowing what to ink comes with time?
Yeah.
Or just putting in
But it's
the...
also
Learnable, okay.
if you focus on it and you try to pay attention to it, you can learn, and you just have to find the patterns. The more of each matchup's play patterns you understand, what play patterns win you games, so you kind of understand what cards win you the games. And it's like, oh, if I win almost every game I play Beast against Ruby Amethyst, I don't want to ever ink Beast. So you don't want to ink it early. And I know some people are like, oh, I have a Beast in my starting hand. I'm not going to play it for 5 turns. I'm just going to ink it. Or, oh, I have 2 Beasts, so I'm just going to ink one of them. It's like, well, I mean, you could have also played both. Maybe you drew the morph. Like, who knows? Maybe they answer your first Beast, and then you don't have the second one anymore. So you get into a lot of weird scenarios where then you have to like be like, well, am I gonna draw an ink? Which card should I try to hold? Do I need extra removal? Do I need extra card advantage? And some of these decisions you have to make before you even know what your opponent's playing. Like, so your first ink can be very important. Where it's just like, oh, do I keep the second baboon because, like, sure, I don't need 2, but if they're hyper aggro, I'm going to be really upset that I don't have a second baboon.
Exactly. So definitely just also putting in the reps into the time into each of the matchups.
Also, what you ink on the first turn is a big sign to your opponent.
Very true.
So sometimes you have to hide information, and then it's like, well, is maybe having the chance to stumble or losing this card worth not letting my opponent know what my secondary color is for another turn? Most of the time, I don't think it matters. Sometimes it does. But you might also make a mistake doing so and punish yourself for trying to hide the information. So it's like, you can't be too cute. Sometimes you just have to be careful.
Yeah, it's like a double-edged sword. Okay, well, do you have any shout-outs you want to give?
Too many. Too many. Like, at this point, I almost feel like I need to be rude and not shout anyone out because there's so many people to shout out. But, I mean, obviously, all of Team Lab, they helped me test a bunch. It was great. I, like, literally just decided to play Bannable 60 after Sailor beat me up trying to play Amber Steel. I had to run into him and I was like, I need you to beat me because otherwise I think this deck's great. And he crushed me 5 games in a row.
Oof.
Like one game, Green Steel versus it, and I won. And then he was like, all right, no more, we're done. Okay, I guess. And so, like, that was really awesome there to have a bunch of awesome players to play with. And then, like, shout outs obviously to Zan and Dale for, like, really refining and doing well with this deck over the last few months, or month, however long it's been since Vegas. It's TCG time is hard.
It is.
And then just, like, various people who I hung out with throughout the DLCs. Like great emotional support friends when they're there when you need them, you know, and then
Of course.
being able to see them cheering for you while you're doing well, or just even if you're outside, like relaxing between rounds. It's always good to see the same people, like the friendships that have developed over the DLCs.
Yeah, I love the Lore Arcana community. It's amazing. Well, okay, thank you for coming on and congratulations on getting first
Thank
place. We really appreciate your support with this.
Thanks, Luke.
Yeah, no problem.
Nick says thanks too.
Hopefully next time we'll get an interview at the location.
That's always the goal. Okay, thank you. Bye, everybody.